For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the morning of 2002, three experienced mountaineers, 28-year-old Priya Desai, 31-year-old Connor C.J. Madsen, and 29-year-old Luca Horvat, set out for a summit push in the desolate subalpine basin below a corniced col. They never returned. Despite an extensive investigation that mobilized search and rescue teams across the treacherous terrain, the ambitious alpine team vanished without a trace, lost to the unforgiving peaks. For one agonizing year, the families and climbing community lived with haunting uncertainty, clinging to dwindling hope. Then, in 2003, a shocking discovery was made. Their high-altitude tent, eerily abandoned, its fabric savagely slashed from the inside, with their boots neatly arranged at the entrance. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Priya, CJ, and Luca on that fateful expedition. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The year 2002 saw three of the world's most promising alpine talents embark on what was to be their most ambitious ascent. Priya Desai, at 28, possessed a rare blend of technical precision and unwavering resolve, her climbs often pushing the boundaries of what was deemed possible. Connor C.J. Madsen, 31, was the team's anchor, his calm demeanor and encyclopedic knowledge of high-altitude logistics invaluable. Luca Horvat, 29, brought an audacious spirit and an unparalleled ability to navigate the most challenging ice formations. Together, they formed an elite unit, their collective experience spanning the most unforgiving peaks across continents. Their current objective was a formidable, unnamed summit, its approach guarded by a remote, high-altitude subalpine basin, nestled precariously below a treacherous corniced col. This was a place of stark, untamed beauty, where the air thinned and the landscape offered no quarter. Their meticulous preparation was a hallmark of their professionalism. They established their high camp with practiced efficiency, a solitary beacon against the vast, desolate expanse. Equipment was secured, the tent pitched to withstand anticipated high winds, and a final meal shared, a quiet moment of camaraderie before the final, demanding push to the summit. The forecast had indicated changing weather, but nothing could have prepared them for the ferocity that descended upon the basin. Without warning, a katabatic blast, a sudden, powerful downdraft of intensely cold, dense air, roared down from the higher slopes. It struck their camp with the force of a physical blow, transforming the serene landscape into a maelstrom of whipping snow and blinding whiteout conditions. The visibility plummeted to mere feet, the roar of the wind drowning out all other sound. Within minutes, the world outside their tent would have become an impenetrable, hostile void. Then, silence. Not the calm after a storm, but an unnerving, profound absence. When the blast eventually subsided and the first search parties ventured into the area days later, there was nothing. No tent, no equipment, no footprints in the newly fallen snow. Priya Desai, Connor C.J. Madsen, and Luca Horvat had vanished without a trace, swallowed whole by the mountain, leaving behind only an unsettling void and a nascent, terrifying mystery. The initial silence that followed the katabatic blast quickly morphed into a growing alarm. When Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat failed to check in at their scheduled time, and subsequent attempts to reach them via satellite phone went unanswered, a cold dread began to settle over the expedition's base. Experienced mountaineers like these did not simply lose contact without reason. Within hours, the alarm was formally raised, triggering a rapid mobilization of search and rescue teams. The mountainous region, unforgiving even in ideal conditions, now became the focal point of a desperate effort. Mountain guide Sara Ito, whose intimate knowledge of the local terrain was unparalleled, joined the command center, providing critical geographical context and advising on potential hazards. Alongside her, SAR dog handler Miguel Araujo prepared his specialist team, their highly trained canines representing one of the few hopes of finding human scent in the vast wilderness. The search operation quickly became one of the most extensive ever mounted in the region. Helicopters scoured the formidable peaks from above, their powerful beams cutting through the lingering cloud cover, while ground teams, battling biting winds and treacherous ice, traversed the subalpine basin and the approaches to the Cornist Col. Every crevice, every snowdrift, every potential avalanche path was meticulously examined. Yet, despite the overwhelming effort, the mountain yielded nothing. Days turned into a week, then more, but there was no sign of the three climbers. No discarded gear, no footprints in the pristine snow, no remnants of their high camp tent. It was as if the katabatic blast had not merely dislodged them but had erased them from existence. The complete absence of any clue was baffling, defying all conventional explanations for mountaineering accidents. The initial urgency of a rescue mission slowly gave way to the grim reality of a recovery operation, then to the creeping despair that settled over the families and the search teams. With each passing day, the hope of finding Priya, Connor, and Luca alive dwindled, replaced by the profound, chilling mystery of their absolute vanishing. The relentless search for Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat eventually met the harsh reality of the mountain and the passage of time. Weeks had turned into months, and the vast resources initially deployed began to dwindle. The extreme conditions, the sheer scale of the search area, and the complete absence of any tangible clue made a sustained operation untenable. The mission, which had begun with the fervent hope of rescue, reluctantly shifted to a recovery effort. And then, as winter deepened its grip, the active search was formally scaled back. The official pronouncement marked a grim turning point, acknowledging that further efforts were unlikely to yield results. The mountain had claimed its secret, and for the time being, it was holding it fast, impenetrable and silent. What exactly had transpired in that subalpine basin remained an impenetrable mystery. Seasoned experts debated the possibilities: a catastrophic fall from an unseen cornice, an avalanche that had buried them without a trace, or perhaps a rapid onset of severe hypothermia and disorientation in the whiteout. Each theory, however, lacked substantiating evidence. There were no debris fields, no disturbed snow, no equipment fragments to suggest a specific type of accident. Without a body, without even a boot or a torn piece of fabric, the cause of their disappearance could not be definitively established. This vacuum of information fueled public speculation, with theories ranging from the plausible, such as a rogue rockfall or an unforeseen crevasse fall, to the more outlandish, including encounters with unseen forces or even deliberate vanishing. The mountaineering community, accustomed to the inherent risks of their pursuit, found this particular case uniquely unsettling due to its absolute lack of resolution, a stark reminder of the mountain's ultimate authority. For the families, and for those who had dedicated themselves to the search, like mountain guide Sora Ito and SAR dog handler Miguel Araujo, the cessation of active operations brought a profound, agonizing silence. The official file on the three vanished mountaineers was eventually closed, yet the questions remained wide open, echoing in the minds of all connected to the tragedy. This open-ended grief, the inability to find closure, cast a long shadow, a psychological burden as heavy as the snow that now covered the high peaks. The mountain had not just taken 3 lives, it had stolen peace of mind, leaving behind only the chilling, unanswered question of what truly happened to Priya, Connor, and Luca on that fateful day in 2002, a haunting enigma that persisted year after year. 12 months had passed since Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat vanished into the alpine void. The mountain had held its secrets, allowing no glimpse into the fate of the 3 skilled climbers. The initial fervor of the search had long since faded, replaced by a quiet, pervasive grief, and the cold certainty that the case would forever remain an unsolved enigma. The file, though officially closed, continued to haunt those who had touched it, a persistent question mark against the backdrop of the towering peaks. Then, against all expectations, the mountain offered a clue. As the unusually warm summer of 2003 began to loosen winter's tenacious grip on the higher elevations, melting snow and ice began to expose terrain previously barren. A lone backcountry skier, venturing into a rarely accessed subalpine basin well below the treacherous Cornist Col, stumbled upon a sight that instantly froze him. Partially buried beneath a late-season snowdrift, battered but unmistakable, was a high-altitude mountaineering tent. Its color, a distinctive bright orange, matched the description of the one used by Desai, Madsen, and Horvat. The discovery sent a jolt through the mountaineering community and reignited the dormant investigation. When search and rescue personnel reached the site, their initial hope quickly curdled into profound unease. The tent, though weathered by a year of exposure, had not collapsed under the weight of snow or been torn apart by external forces. Instead, its fabric bore several jagged, violent slashes, clearly originating from the interior. These were not rips from an avalanche or punctures from falling rock. They were deliberate, desperate cuts, suggesting a frantic attempt to exit. Adding to the unsettling scene was an even more perplexing detail. Just inside the tent flap, arranged with an eerie precision that defied the chaos suggested by the slashes, were 3 pairs of high-altitude mountaineering boots. They lay neatly side by side, as if their owners had carefully removed them before stepping out. This stark contradiction, a violent, internal destruction of their shelter combined with an almost ritualistic placement of essential gear, deepened the mystery immeasurably. Why would experienced climbers, facing a sudden, terrifying blast of freezing wind, slash their way out of their only refuge, and then, inexplicably, leave behind the very equipment critical for survival in such an environment? The discovery of the tent did not provide answers. Instead, it posed far more disturbing questions about the final moments of Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat. The discovery of the tent, a year after the climber's disappearance, shattered the lingering silence surrounding the case, forcing authorities to revisit what had been deemed an insoluble mystery. The file, once closed, was now reopened with a renewed urgency, its pages demanding a fresh perspective. Mountain guide Sara Ito, who had advised during the initial, fruitless search, found herself once again poring over maps and weather data, her local expertise now directed towards understanding the unsettling new evidence. SAR dog handler Miguel Araujo, whose canines had found no trace then, felt a renewed, if grim, sense of purpose. The mountain had finally offered a clue, and the investigation pivoted dramatically. The tent itself became the primary exhibit in a reopened forensic examination. Investigators meticulously documented the jagged slashes, confirming their origin from the interior. This detail alone fundamentally altered the narrative. The climbers had not been overwhelmed by an external force while inside, but had actively, violently exited their shelter. Every fiber, every seam, every item within the tent or its absence was scrutinized. The neatly placed boots, an almost domestic detail amidst the suggested terror, offered no comfort. Instead, they deepened the enigma. Were they removed in haste, in a moment of disoriented panic, or with some inexplicable, desperate intention? The state of the campsite, the surrounding snow, and any subtle geographical features were reevaluated, seeking to reconstruct the events of that night. Previous assumptions of an avalanche, a simple fall, or straightforward exposure were now rendered insufficient. The evidence pointed to an internal event, a desperate, perhaps panicked flight. New hypotheses began to form, each more unsettling than the last. A sudden medical emergency leading to extreme disorientation, a terrifying encounter with a large, aggressive animal, or a collective psychological break induced by extreme isolation, sleep deprivation, and the ferocity of the katabatic blast. The complexities of this new evidence demanded expertise beyond conventional search and rescue. Authorities sought the insight of glaciologist Dr. Katia Novak, whose specialty lay in the dynamics of high-altitude snow and ice formations, and the retrospective analysis of severe weather events. Her initial task was to reconstruct the precise environmental conditions of that fateful night, to understand the atmospheric and glacial forces that might have converged upon the climbers. Her observations, though not immediately providing a definitive answer to the slashes or the abandoned boots, would lay the groundwork for a profound and unexpected breakthrough, shifting the focus from external threats to the very environment within the tent itself. Dr. Katia Novak's expertise became the pivotal element in unraveling the tragic enigma of Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat. Her meticulous reconstruction of the katabatic blast's characteristics, combined with a detailed examination of the tent's remains, led her down an unexpected path. She noted not only the tent's specific design, but also the peculiar arrangement of its guy lines, reinforced by the climbers against anticipated high winds. These taut, crisscrossing lines, Dr. Novak theorized, inadvertently formed a wind harp. Her breakthrough came with the discovery of a distinct snow slab fracture path, not caused by an avalanche, but by a subtle, resonant vibration in the snowpack, located directly downwind from where the tent had been pitched. This fracture path aligned precisely with the trajectory of the katabatic blast and the position of the tent's reinforced guy lines. Dr. Novak determined that the immense force of the descending wind, roaring through the basin at hurricane speeds, had caused these guy lines to vibrate harmonically. These vibrations, amplified by the tent structure and the surrounding ice, would have created a complex symphony of low-frequency sounds, a disorienting, resonant hum that penetrated the thickest fabric. The reviravolta, the shocking realization, then emerged. In the extreme conditions of the whiteout with zero visibility, the roar of the wind, and profound isolation, the human mind becomes susceptible to misinterpretation. Dr. Novak posited that the continuous, disorienting harmonic vibrations generated by the wind harp, combined with the climber's probable sleep deprivation, heightened anxiety, and sensory deprivation, were not perceived as environmental phenomena. Instead, their distressed minds distorted the unsettling sounds. The resonant hum, the eerie pitches, were tragically misread as approaching voices, as if an unknown, hostile entity was closing in on their fragile sanctuary. This perceived threat, the terrifying illusion of approaching figures in an utterly impenetrable whiteout, triggered an acute, overwhelming panic. Believing themselves under immediate external threat, their survival instincts screamed for immediate escape. The slashes in the tent, therefore, were not acts of vandalism, but desperate, frantic attempts to flee a perceived danger. In their terror, blinded by the storm and consumed by the auditory deception, they tore their way out, leaving behind the neatly placed boots, an almost automatic but ultimately fatal abandonment of critical gear in their desperate, unthinking surge into the blinding, freezing chaos. The scientific explanation offered by Dr. Katia Novak provided a coherent, if profoundly heartbreaking, resolution to the mystery that had plagued investigators for over a year. The three experienced mountaineers, Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat, had not been victims of an external attack, nor had they succumbed to a simple, overwhelming natural disaster in the way initially conceived. Instead, their demise was the result of a tragic misinterpretation of their environment, a cruel deception orchestrated by the very forces they sought to conquer, amplified by the extreme stress and sensory deprivation of the sudden katabatic storm. The wind harp had played a fatal tune, transforming the roar of the wind into phantom voices, driving them from their only sanctuary. Fleeing into the full force of a katabatic whiteout, without the essential protection of their high-altitude boots, sealed their fate instantaneously. Hypothermia would have set in within minutes, disorientation deepening with every step into the blinding blizzard. Their bodies, almost certainly overcome by the elements, were likely buried swiftly by the accumulating snow or carried away by the relentless forces of the mountain, dissolving back into the vast, unforgiving landscape. Their remains have never been found, a silent testament to the mountain's enduring power and its ability to absorb all traces. For those involved in the arduous investigation, the scientific clarity brought a complex mix of relief and profound sorrow. Mountain guide Sora Ito, who had spent countless hours searching the same treacherous terrain, spoke of the immense sadness in understanding the precise, yet avoidable, nature of the tragedy. SAR dog handler Miguel Araujo, whose trained animals had searched for a scent that was never there, acknowledged the chilling finality of the explanation. Dr. Novak, in her calm, scientific assessment, underscored the critical lessons learned. The inherent dangers of cognitive distortion in extreme environments, and the subtle yet deadly interplay between human perception and the raw power of nature. The story of Priya Desai, Connor Madsen, and Luca Horvat became a stark cautionary tale within the mountaineering community. It highlighted that even the most skilled and prepared climbers could be outmaneuvered not just by objective hazards like avalanches or falls, but by the insidious psychological toll of isolation, fear, and misinterpretation in the wilderness. Their legacy is not one of failure, but a poignant reminder of the fine line between survival and tragedy in the high mountains, a testament to the unpredictable forces that govern such remote and unforgiving realms, and the complex fragility of the human mind when pushed to its absolute limits.